Is it time for America to wage war on the cartels? Growing pressure on Joe Biden to get tough with these drug lords and designate them as terrorist organizations after the brutal killing of Americans. Instead of focusing on root causes like Kamala's supposed to be doing, we need to stop the cartel carnage once and for all. They are flooding America with fentanyl. Over 100,000 Americans are now dying from poisoning. They are overwhelming our border, making $13 billion a year in human trafficking. And now these narco-terrorists are kidnapping, torturing, and killing American citizens. Mexico is so dangerous right now that the State Department is warning spring breakers about even going to the country. Republicans say enough is enough. It's time to take action.
We're going to unleash the fury and might of the United States against these cartels. We're going to introduce legislation in the coming days and trying to make it bipartisan to designate these groups foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law.
Lindsey Graham is right, though. We're losing 100,000 Americans every single year to drug deaths, almost exclusively because of Mexican drug cartels. If the Mexican government will not or cannot stop these cartels from killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, then America should.
The White House, though, is not sold on the idea of using the military to go after cartels, but maybe they should listen to what Joe Biden has said about it.
But I'm the guy that suggested in the first national drug strategy that we get the military involved. The military, in fact, can do a very important job by using their radars, by using their technology, by using their ability to identify, for purposes of interdiction, drug trafficking patterns.
While Republicans demand action, Merrick Garland said he is already on the case.
Cartels are responsible for the deaths of Americans, and we are fighting as hard as possible. The DEA and the FBI are doing everything possible to dismantle and disrupt and ultimately prosecute the leaders of the cartels and the entire networks that they depend on.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Jesse. Lindsey Graham has a 2-point program designating Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which allows prosecution, and worldwide, they can even go after China as a conspirator with these Mexican cartels. But the second is the authority to use military force, and that's the one that apparently there is some question about. Senators Cruz and Walz are more interested in using drones if that were ever to come to be. But where do you fall on this, and what do you think is the most important?
I like having the military option on the table. I don't think it's the right move to just lob missiles willy-nilly right away, but it's important to have that threat out there. Cruz wants to use financial strangulation like we do with ISIS. And you can do things with money laundering, because these cartels are showing up to legitimate banks in Latin America with briefcases full of dirty money. And come on. So you can do that. And I remember, Dana would know better than I would, do you remember during the War on Terror when Pakistan started launching attacks on our people in Afghanistan? And so what we went and we started to actually attack militants inside Pakistan, across the border. And it was effective for a while, but what that ended up doing was really destabilizing Pakistan. So you have to be careful. If you destabilize already a failed narco state, Mexico, more than it already is destabilized, we could have a huge problem. It's our largest trading partner. A lot of manufacturing is done right on those northern states, right next to Texas, Arizona. So you have to be very careful. And if I was sending my daughters to Cabo, are you kidding me? I would not be sending them anywhere near that spring break. I think everybody needs to be careful. Because it looks like Joe Biden is going to be coming under a lot of bipartisan pressure to do more than he's doing right now. He's doing nothing. Garland has no strategy. They've made more money under Joe Biden than any other president, and a lot of that's human trafficking. If you stop the human trafficking element, you cut down a lot of the money.
Well, White House Press Secretary Dana says that Karine Jean-Pierre says that fentanyl is at its lowest level in years. I mean, but that's not my question.
Oh, okay.
I mean, my question is, if we've
She's
got
wrong.
200 Americans a day who are dying from this poisoning, we've got all kinds of issues going on, 100,000 people a year. I mean, why isn't it time for us to do something drastic?
And Karine Jean-Pierre does say that. She said that they are interdicting more than ever before, but that means that there's actually more that's coming across than ever before, especially if you look at the number of overdoses. So you said something yesterday that's been on my mind ever since, and that was, it's something that it's not a new concept, but it's an important one that we think about, and that's the demand side. And we have an issue there. And I know that Greg, for a long time, many years since I've been here working with him, has advocated for the legalization of drugs, and that would maybe be the solution. And I could even see maybe being persuaded to that eventually, but that's going to take time. The country doesn't move that fast to do something, and we have an emergency on our hands. At the same time, as Jesse was pointing out, we have this issue now where a lot of companies want to bring their manufacturing back from China back over closer to home. And wherever they're wanting to put it, a lot of them want to put it in Mexico. So the Mexican government has a choice to make here. Yeah. Like, do they want to be responsible and help their citizens in a way that brings good paying jobs to them with their largest trading partner and be the best neighbor that they can be? Or are they powerless to do anything? Is it so corrupted that when you look at some of those graphics of all the cartels that are basically overrunning Mexico, and then you see where they are in our cities, it's so discouraging. And it's not just the fentanyl coming across. The human trafficking issue is a really big one. I still think there's more to find out about the 4 Americans that went down there. I'm not. Oh, sure. I think that there's more to this story, and I hope that the 2 who are in the hospital get well enough so that they can help us figure it out, because that might be key to figuring out how to make sure it doesn't happen again. My last point is Secretary Mayorkas is for sure going to be called up to Capitol Hill to testify about this incident and the request from people like Senator Graham about considering options of using military, even technology in this. And I bet he is going to say, but the border is secure. And an incident like this, where you have 4 Americans kidnapped, 2 of them killed, that really focuses the mind.
You know, Geraldo, you reacted to something that Dana said, but let me first ask you, if it were Al-Qaeda, or if it were ISIS, 3 miles from the United States border, and I agree, there may be more to this story, we would be doing something about it.
But whether or not we use the military is the issue that's on the table right now.
Is prosecution enough?
Let me deal with the military just for this moment, because I want people to imagine what it would be like if the Mexican army raided an Arizona gun dealer who was flooding Mexico with arms. It is an outrageous scenario. It would never happen. It can only happen, military intervention on a law enforcement matter can only happen with intense cooperation with the host country, so to speak. I was in Colombia during Plan Colombia, the largest example of the U.S. military helping local military. It was from 2000 until 2012. It started under President Clinton. You saw Biden there with the Republican Senator Orrin Hatch. They were colleagues, and it was bipartisan. We invested billions of dollars into Colombia, fighting the narco traffickers and the communist insurgency, and it succeeded to a certain extent.
Can it succeed in Mexico? Is the issue.
Only if Mexico buys into it. And I think the way to do it, going back to what Jesse and Dana both said, is trade. They are our largest trading partner. But remember when Trump strangled the border? He shut the border, scared the hell out of the Mexican government, scared them into cooperation. I think that trade is where you have leverage over Mexico. We want Mexico to be that partner.
Do you think the cartel cares about trade, Tom Shalhoub?
You know what I think they care about is shut the border. And I'm so glad that Geraldo uttered that phrase. That's the phrase, shut the border. I feel like I don't want to hear new solutions like, oh, let's bring in the military. I think we know. When it comes to law enforcement, we know what works. When I moved to New York, it was Fort Apache, the Bronx in the early 90s. Giuliani and Bratton turned it into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in like 18 months using good old-fashioned law enforcement. So law enforcement in our cities, which right now have totally given up on crime, because that's where the drugs hit the road, And also on a federal level, we don't need the military. The DEA has guns. They have military-style equipment, and the DEA knows how to work with Mexico. They're the ones doing it. We don't need to add the military.
But haven't they been working for the last 20 years? Is the Mexican government so corrupt that we corrupted by the cartels that we can't work with them?
Yes. So work with them as well as you can. But we're letting them over the border. So that's it. Shut the border. They're coming over the border. They're coming into our cities. So we know Mexico is corrupt. We can only worry about them so much. Worry about the United States, close the border, and then enforce crime in our cities. That's what I think.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.